man humiliates a woman at a party, but when he discovers she's the new CEO of his company, his world turns upside down. The party buzzed with energy, a kaleidoscope of laughter and chatter floating through the upscale Manhattan apartment. Gold and silver decorations glimmered against the soft lighting, reflecting the status of the elite crowd gathered. Declan Hawthorne stood at the center of it all, a grin plastered across his handsome face. He thrived on the attention, soaking up compliments like a sponge, but beneath that charming smile lay an arrogance that few could ignore. "Look at her," Declan sneered, pointing discreetly toward Alara Sinclair, who stood alone by the refreshment table. In her simple navy dress, she looked out of place among the glittering gowns and designer suits. What was she thinking? Doesn't she know we're in New York? A ripple of laughter passed through the group surrounding Declan. They leaned in, eager to hear more. "It's like she forgot to dress for an occasion," he continued, his voice dripping with disdain. "Maybe she thinks simplicity is a statement." As the laughter echoed, a flicker of something deeper ignited within Alara. She had heard him. Instead of collapsing under the weight of his words, she straightened her posture. With eyes that sparkled with determination, she turned to face Declan and the crowd. "At least I'm not a peacock," she shot back, her voice steady but sharp. "Some of us prefer to let our character shine rather than our clothing." The laughter died down, replaced by a stunned silence. Whispers circulated as the audience processed her response. Declan's smirk faltered, and for a moment, he felt the heat of embarrassment creep up his neck. She had turned the tables, and he hadn't expected it. "Who does she think she is?" he thought, anger boiling within him. But there was something captivating about her resilience, something that held the crowd's attention. Alara stood firm, her confidence radiating like a beacon. "You may think you know worth by appearances, but I assure you, true value runs much deeper," she added, her words resonating in the room. Declan's arrogance wavered as he tried to regain his composure. "What a ridiculous thing to say," he muttered under his breath, but he felt a gnawing sensation in his gut. Had he crossed a line? The laughter that once felt empowering now seemed like a fragile facade. Yet, his ego pushed him to shrug off the moment, determined not to let her words affect him. But the truth lingered. Alara had captivated the audience in a way he never could. He had played the role of the charming critic, but she had become the unexpected heroine. Just then, his friend Alex nudged him, breaking the tension. "Don't let her get to you, man. She's just trying to be different." "Different doesn't mean better," Declan replied, forcing a laugh, though the sound felt hollow. Inside, doubts began to creep in. What did it say about him to belittle someone simply because they stood apart? Was this the kind of man he wanted to be? As the party continued, Declan tried to shake off the encounter, mingling with others, but his thoughts drifted back to Alara. He watched her from a distance, observing how she engaged with a small group, her laughter genuine and warm. A flicker of respect sparked within him, but he quickly buried it. No, he was not about to admire someone he had just mocked. But as the night wore on, he found himself increasingly drawn to her. Declan felt a strange mix of confusion and curiosity. Who was this woman who could stand up to him so effortlessly? And why did her words linger in his mind? The party buzzed around him, but Declan felt the weight of the moment shift. It was a cutting encounter, one that would unravel the threads of his carefully woven life. Little did he know, this was just the beginning of a journey he never saw coming, one that would challenge everything he believed about appearances, worth, and himself. As the party continued to pulse with laughter and chatter, Declan found himself wandering toward a quieter corner of the room. He was still processing the sharp words Alara had thrown back at him. For the first time, he felt a hint of uncertainty creeping into his confidence. Just then, he overheard a conversation between two guests standing nearby. "Did you hear? Alara Sinclair is the daughter of the Sinclair fortune," one of them whispered, their voice laced with disbelief. "She's a billionaire and a big-name philanthropist." Declan's heart raced. He leaned closer, straining to catch every word. The revelation hit him like a cold wave. The woman he had belittled was not just an ordinary girl at a party. She was someone of immense importance and influence. His mind raced back to her simple outfit, the understated elegance that had made him feel superior. How could he have been so blind? As he stood frozen, memories flooded his mind. Flashes of Alara's early years, her humble beginnings. He recalled a glimpse he had seen of her through a window last summer, watching her volunteer with a group of children at a local shelter. At the time, he had dismissed it as a publicity stunt, something to gain more attention. But now, he felt a wave of shame wash over him. Declan took a deep breath, trying to process his feelings. How had he allowed his arrogance to blind him to her true essence? The laughter and clinking of glasses faded into the background, replaced by the sound of his own heartbeat. Did she really go to those schools? The other guest continued. I heard she turned down her family's connections to build her own path. It's impressive, really. Declan felt a knot tighten in his stomach. He had assumed that wealth equaled privilege, that it defined a person's worth. But was that really true? Alara had chosen a different route, one that required strength and resilience. His heart sank further as he realized how wrong he had been. Maybe I should talk to her, he thought, but the idea terrified him. What could he possibly say after ridiculing her? Would she even want to hear him out? Suddenly, he felt a tap on his shoulder. It was his friend Jake, who had been watching him with a curious expression. Hey man, you look like you've seen a ghost. What's up? Declan forced a smile, but the heaviness in his chest remained. Just thinking about Alara, he admitted, his voice barely above a whisper. Jake raised an eyebrow. Alara? The girl you were making fun of earlier? What? Did you suddenly develop a crush? It's not like that, Declan snapped, catching himself. I didn't know who she really was. I messed up. Jake shrugged, clearly not understanding the weight of Declan's words. People like her are used to it. It's all part of the game, you know? If you're rich, you can take the jabs. But what if she's more than that? Declan countered, frustration bubbling inside him. What if she's trying to make a difference? With that, Declan turned away, leaving Jake behind. He needed to find Alara, to tell her that he was sorry, not just for what he had said, but for how he had judged her without knowing her story. Navigating through the crowd, Declan's heart raced. He spotted Alara across the room, standing with a small group of friends. She looked relaxed, her laughter ringing out like music, yet there was an aura about her that hinted at her strength. As he approached, doubts crept in again. What if she rejected him? What if she didn't want to hear his apology? But he had to try. This was his chance to confront his own misconceptions. Alara, he called out, and her laughter faded as she turned to him, her expression shifting from surprise to something unreadable. Declan, she said cautiously, glancing around as if weighing her options. I need to talk to you, he said, his voice steady, but his heart pounding in his chest. Can we step outside for a moment? She hesitated, but then nodded, leading him away from the noise of the party. Under the soft glow of the streetlights, Declan took a deep breath, preparing to unveil the truth he had just discovered about himself and her. Declan felt a knot in his stomach as he moved through the crowded charity event. The room buzzed with laughter and chatter, but his mind was focused solely on Alara. After learning about her true identity, he was filled with guilt. He had belittled someone who was not only wealthy, but also used her resources to help others. His past arrogance now felt like a heavy weight he couldn't shake off. He scanned the room, searching for her familiar figure. Finally, he spotted Alara across the hall, standing near a table filled with brochures about her latest philanthropic project. She looked composed, but there was an air of tension around her. Declan took a deep breath and made his way toward her, each step feeling like a challenge. As he approached, he noticed a group of her friends nearby, their eyes flickering with judgment. Declan felt the heat rise in his cheeks, but he pushed through. He needed to speak to her. Hey, Alara, he said, his voice steady despite his racing heart. She turned to him, her expression unreadable. "Declan," she replied coolly. "What do you want?" "I want to apologize," he blurted out, the words tumbling out before he could second-guess himself. "I was wrong to make fun of you at the party. I didn't know who you were, and I let my ego get the best of me." Alara studied him, her eyes narrowing slightly. "You think an apology is enough? You treated me like I was invisible." "I know, and I regret that. I see now how shallow I was," he admitted, feeling vulnerable. "I've been reflecting on my life, and I realize how empty my social circle is. I want to change." "Change? How?" she challenged, crossing her arms. "You think you can just decide to be a better person after one bad decision?" Declan hesitated, searching for the right words. "I want to support your work. I want to help, not just for you, but for the people you're helping. I know I have to earn your trust." Her expression softened slightly, but she remained cautious. "It's not that simple, Declan. Trust takes time, and I can't just forget how you made me feel." "I don't expect you to," he said, feeling a mix of desperation and sincerity. "But I want to prove that I can be someone you would want in your corner. I've seen the good you're doing, and it inspires me. I want to be part of that." "I don't know if I can believe you," she replied, her voice tinged with uncertainty. "How do I know this isn't just another game for you?" "Because it's not a game," he insisted, his tone earnest. "I want to be better, for myself and for others. I want to learn from you. You have so much strength, and I want to understand that." Alara took a step back, processing his words. "Strength? You think I just have strength? You don't know what I've been through. I've fought for every bit of respect I have, and I won't let someone like you make a mockery of it." Declan's heart sank at her words. "I know I messed up. I can't change the past, but I want to show you that I can be different. Please give me a chance." A silence hung between them, thick with unspoken emotions. Alara's gaze softened, revealing a flicker of hope mixed with skepticism. "This is going to take time, Declan. I need to see that you mean what you say." "I understand," he replied, relief washing over him. "I'll do whatever it takes. I won't let you down again." As they stood there, a shared understanding began to form. Alara felt a twinge of compassion for him, despite her lingering resentment. "If you're serious, then maybe we can start with something small. Help me at the next event, and let's see if you can walk the walk." "I'd like that," Declan said, a genuine smile spreading across his face. Alara nodded slowly, a cautious agreement. There was still a long road ahead, but for the first time, Declan felt a spark of hope for redemption. As they stood together in that crowded room, two paths began to intertwine, setting the stage for a journey neither of them had expected. Alara stood by the window of her small yet cozy office, sunlight streaming through the glass, illuminating the stacks of papers and brochures that outlined her philanthropic projects. She took a deep breath, trying to shake off the clouds of humiliation that still hovered over her mind. The memory of Declan's words from the party lingered, but now they felt different. They were no longer sharp daggers. Instead, they had transformed into a reminder of her strength. As she reflected on her journey, Alara thought about how far she had come. The pain of being belittled for her appearance had shaped her, but it also fueled her resolve to make a difference in the world. She reminded herself, "I am more than what they see." Just then, her phone buzzed on the desk, breaking her thoughts. It was a message from Declan. "Hey Alara, I was thinking about our last conversation. I'd love to help with your projects. Can we meet?" Alara felt a mix of emotions. Part of her wanted to ignore him, to continue guarding her heart, but another part yearned for the possibility that he was sincere. After a moment of hesitation, she replied, "Sure, let's meet tomorrow." The next day, Declan arrived at her office, his expression serious yet hopeful. "Thank you for meeting me," he said, stepping inside. "I know I have a lot to make up for." Alara nodded, crossing her arms. You do. But it's not just about saying sorry, Declan. It's about showing it. I understand, he replied, sincerity evident in his voice. I want to help. I want to show you that I can be better. As they discussed her upcoming charity event, Alara noticed a shift in Declan. He listened intently, asking questions about her work with underprivileged children and how she planned to raise funds. The more they talked, the more she saw a glimpse of the man behind the arrogance. I can't believe how much this means to you, Declan said, his eyes widening in realization. You're not just giving money, you're changing lives. Yes, Alara said, her passion igniting. It's about creating opportunities. Every child deserves a chance to succeed, no matter their background. Declan leaned back in his chair, visibly moved. I never thought about it like that. I've been so caught up in my own world that I forgot there's a bigger picture. Their conversation flowed easily, and for the first time, Alara felt a connection with Declan that went beyond their past conflicts. They shared stories about their childhoods. Declan spoke about his privileged upbringing, while Alara opened up about her struggles with self-acceptance. It's funny, she said, a small smile creeping onto her face. We come from such different places, yet we both face our own battles. Declan chuckled lightly. Yeah, it's true. I guess we're more alike than I thought. As the weeks passed, Declan dove into his new role within Alara's organization. He volunteered at events, met with donors, and even helped organize workshops for the children. Each time he saw the joy on their faces, he felt a sense of purpose he had never experienced before. One afternoon, as they prepared for a fundraiser, Declan watched Alara interact with a group of children. She laughed, knelt down to their level, and listened to their dreams with genuine interest. In that moment, he felt a wave of admiration wash over him. You're incredible, Alara, he said, unable to contain his thoughts. Alara looked up, surprised. Why do you say that? Because you make them feel seen, he explained. You give them hope. It's inspiring. She smiled softly, brushing a strand of hair behind her ear. Thank you, Declan. That means a lot coming from you. Their bond grew deeper as they shared more experiences, both joyful and challenging. Declan began to understand the weight of his past actions and the importance of empathy. He was no longer the man who judged Alara for her simplicity. He was learning to appreciate her strength and character. One evening, as they wrapped up a long day of work, Alara looked at Declan with newfound respect. You know, I never expected to find a friend in you after everything. Declan met her gaze, sincerity etched on his face. I never expected to learn so much from you. You've changed me, Alara. In that moment, they both knew they were on a path to something greater. Together, they were not just healing old wounds, but creating a new future, one built on understanding and compassion. The journey ahead was still uncertain, but for the first time, Alara felt hopeful. The sun dipped below the skyline of New York City, casting long shadows over the streets. Declan Hawthorne felt a tightening in his chest as he entered a popular rooftop bar, the usual laughter and chatter now feeling heavy with unspoken tension. His friends gathered at a table, their eyes flicking to him, then back to their drinks. They all knew about his connection with Alara Sinclair, and the air was thick with judgment. Look who decided to join us, said Brad, his tone dripping with sarcasm. The new charity case. Declan clenched his jaw but held back his initial response. He could sense the weight of their gazes, each one questioning his choices. I'm not a charity case, he replied, forcing a smile that felt more like a grimace. I'm just trying to do something good. Good? With her? Sarah piped in, rolling her eyes. You're just trying to get into her good graces because she has money. What's next? You'll be wearing rags to fit in with her crowd? Declan's fists tightened on the table, but he took a deep breath. He had been through too much to let these shallow remarks get to him. You guys don't get it. Alara is different. She's not just about money. Right, Brad scoffed. You think she cares about you? You're just a phase for her. Keep dreaming. Across the city, Alara sat in her own penthouse, staring out at the twinkling lights. She had received a flurry of messages from her friends, all expressing disbelief and concern over her connection with Declan. "Are you sure you want to be seen with him?" one text read. "He's just a spoiled rich kid." With a sigh, she put her phone down, feeling the weight of their expectations. Alara had worked hard to build her reputation as a philanthropist, and now it felt as if it was all in jeopardy because of her association with Declan. She knew he was trying to change, but doubt crept in. Would people see her as less because of him? Later that evening, Declan decided it was time to confront his friends. He stood up at the table, his heart racing. "Look, I know you all have opinions about Alara, but I'm not asking for your approval. I like her for who she is, not for her money." "Come on, Declan," Brad said, waving a hand dismissively. "You're blind to what's right in front of you. You think she actually cares about some guy who used to mock her?" "Maybe she sees something in me that you all refuse to," Declan shot back, his voice rising. "I'm tired of pretending to be someone I'm not just to fit in with you people." The silence that followed was heavy. Declan felt his chest tighten even more, the pressure of his friend's judgment pushing down on him. He turned to leave, but Brad's voice stopped him. "You're making a mistake. You'll regret this." Declan shook his head, a new resolve forming within him. "No, I won't. I'm done with this." He left the bar, the door swinging shut behind him. Meanwhile, Alara had decided to go out for a walk, hoping to clear her mind. As she strolled through Central Park, she reflected on her own fears. The whispers of her friends echoed in her mind. She knew they cared about her, but their opinions felt suffocating. Suddenly, she spotted Declan across the path, his hands shoved deep into his pockets. Their eyes met, and for a moment, the world around them faded. "Hey," he said, his voice softer than it had been earlier. "I didn't expect to see you here." "Neither did I," Alara replied, taking a step closer. "I was just thinking about everything." Declan nodded, his expression earnest. "I had a talk with my friends. They don't understand why I want to be with you. They think it's all about money." Alara sighed, feeling a mixture of relief and frustration. "I've been facing the same thing. My friends are worried about how people will judge me for being with you." "They don't know you like I do," Declan said, stepping even closer. "You're not just some wealthy heiress. You're someone who cares, who really wants to make a difference." "And you're not just some arrogant guy who belittled me," Alara countered, a hint of a smile breaking through her worries. "You're trying to change, and I see that." In that moment, they both understood the risks they faced. They were caught between the expectations of their social circles and the genuine connection they had begun to build. "Let's not let them define us," Declan said, determination in his voice. "We can be better than that." Alara nodded, feeling a spark of hope. "Together, we can." And as they stood there in the warmth of the evening, a sense of solidarity enveloped them, forging their bond even stronger against the backdrop of doubt and judgment that surrounded them. The evening air buzzed with excitement as guests arrived at the grand charity gala. The venue sparkled with lights, and the energy was electric. Alara Sinclair stood near the entrance, dressed elegantly in a deep blue gown that flowed gracefully around her. Tonight was not just another event, it was a celebration of her hard work and dedication to philanthropy. Declan Hawthorne stood beside her, his presence both a comfort and a statement. He had chosen to stand with Alara, fully aware of the whispers that accompanied their connection. As guests mingled, Alara glanced at Declan. "Are you ready for this?" she asked, her voice steady but carrying a hint of nerves. Declan smiled, brushing a hand through his hair. "I've never been more ready for anything. You deserve this recognition, Alara." Just then, a group of familiar faces emerged from the crowd, Declan's former friends, who had always had something to say about his choices. Their laughter cut through the air, and the atmosphere shifted. The leader of the group, a tall man named Grant, approached with a smirk. Well, if it isn't Declan Hawthorne, the new charity case," he quipped, his tone dripping with sarcasm. Declan's jaw tightened, but Alara stepped forward, her chin held high. "I am not a charity case, Grant. I work hard for what I believe in, and I will not let you undermine that." The guests nearby turned their heads, intrigued by the confrontation. Grant laughed, but there was uncertainty in his eyes. "Come on, Alara. You know you're just a pretty face trying to fit in with the elite. You don't belong here." Alara's heart raced, but she stood her ground. "I belong wherever I choose to be. My worth is not defined by superficial opinions." The crowd began to murmur, and Declan's respect for Alara soared. He took a step forward, his voice firm. "You don't get to decide what makes someone valuable, Grant. Alara's impact in this world is far greater than anything you could understand." Grant's expression faltered, and he glanced at his friends, unsure of how to respond. The silence that followed was thick, filled with tension and disbelief. "Maybe you should take a good look in the mirror, Grant," Alara continued, her confidence unwavering. "You might find that true success is measured by kindness, not by wealth or status." The crowd erupted in applause, and Alara felt a wave of support wash over her. Declan beamed at her, pride shining in his eyes. "That was incredible," he whispered, leaning closer. As the evening progressed, Alara received her award, a beautiful crystal trophy that sparkled under the lights. When she accepted it on stage, her voice held a mixture of gratitude and determination. "This award is not just for me. It represents everyone who believes in the power of giving back. True wealth lies in the connections we make and the lives we touch." Declan watched her speak, feeling a profound shift within himself. He realized that his past arrogance had blinded him to the beauty of authenticity. The applause that filled the room was not just for Alara, it was for the journey they both had taken. Later, as the gala began to wind down, Alara and Declan found a quiet corner to reflect. "I never imagined I could feel this way," Declan admitted, his voice softer now. "I used to think success was all about appearances, but you've shown me that it's so much more." Alara smiled gently, her eyes shining with understanding. "It's easy to get lost in what others think. But when we look beyond appearances, we discover the real value in people." Declan nodded, feeling the weight of his past choices lifting. "I want to keep learning, to keep growing. You inspire me, Alara." "And you inspire me too, Declan," she replied, her voice warm. "Together, we can make a difference." As the gala faded into the night, both Declan and Alara stood side by side, ready to face the world together. In that moment, they understood that true connections were built on honesty and empathy, not on the reflections in the mirror of appearances. The journey ahead promised challenges, but they were prepared to tackle them as partners, embracing the true essence of their worth. Share this story if you believe that true connections can transform lives and challenge societal norms. Leave a comment on how standing up for someone has made a difference in your life, and subscribe to our channel for more inspiring stories like this one.